Good morning from the Zayed National Museum here in Abu Dhabi. You're listening to The Globalist with me, Tyler Brulé. My colleague Andrew Tuck is here as well. What's coming up today, Andrew?
Well, after a weekend of talks but no results in Islamabad, Donald Trump says he doesn't care if Iran returns to the negotiating table as the US prepares to block the Strait of Hormuz, and Iran accuses the US of shifting the goalposts. We're going to get a view on the ground here in Abu Dhabi.
We'll also get the latest news from our bureau in Bangkok in a moment. And of course, we'll be having a flip through the papers. That's right here on The Globalist Live from Abu Dhabi. And good morning from Abu Dhabi. Andrew Tuck is with me, and this is, of course, it's Tyler Brulé as well. Andrew, it's a bit of a road show this week. We kick off this morning here at the Zayed National Museum, an absolutely spectacular facility. It is really something of a monument. It's breathtaking. Your first time here, you were here just before Christmas, just before it opened, but maybe just first impressions where we are this morning.
Well, it's extraordinary. It's almost like a spiritual experience coming in here. It's all white travertine, concrete, beautiful, epic spaces. We have a dhow behind us, which is pretty extraordinary. And if you heard some music at the top of the show, at the point the museum opens every morning, they play the national anthem. So you had some rousing music there as well.
Andrew, why don't we set up the week for our listeners, because we have something of. It is a bit of a traveling roadshow this week. Of course, we're going to be in Abu Dhabi today, tomorrow. We head to Dubai. Then after that, we are off to your friends in...
Well, we're going to Sharjah, where we're going to be broadcasting from the House of Wisdom for one day. And then we'll return to Dubai on Friday as well. So a full week in which we're going to take the temperature of the region, meet many of the players who are thinking about what happens after the war, how you reset nations, how you reset business. So it's going to be a fascinating few days.
I mean, it's a bit of a theme for the coming week, really. And of course, one of our gentlemen, and of course, not just gentleman correspondent, we could almost call him, Andrew. Inzi is here with us this morning as well. Inzi, I want to bring you in. It has been quite a 40-plus days for you now. We'll be talking to a variety of voices across the program today and across the week as well. But maybe just give your assessment, if you sort of look back to, of course, those first moments, filing copy, being live around the mic, as to where we are at the start of a new week.
Look, it's surreal because 6 weeks into this conflict now, I don't think anyone living in the UAE, this country which prides itself on stability, on safety, on peace as well, essentially, would actually be at the center of a conflict. And I say it's been at the center. Yes, I know Iran and the US and Israel have been, but actually the UAE has been in some sorts as well, because this is the country that's been targeted the most by Iranian aggression. It's had the most missiles and drones thrown into it by Iran, more than 2,600. And essentially, it's caused huge instability across this country. And I think for people living here, it's just been a bit of a shock, quite honestly. But also, there has been so many positives that come out of this country, and I think we will come on to many of them.
Give me a top three, though, from your perspective. You think three things that have been outstanding, if we can say that.
Defense. I mean, the defense force has been incredible. They've protected this country incredibly well. Resilience. I think we always knew that the UAE was quite resilient, but this is no doubt the toughest test that it's ever had, and they've showed that resilience. And then thirdly as well, and I say this from a selfish journalistic perspective, is that actually the communication in this country has been incredible. In a wartime, in times of uncertainty, the communication from government, not just to journalists, but to everyday people on the ground, has been pretty spectacular. So yeah, I'd say they're the three top things that the UAE has nailed during a war. I mean, I don't think there's a handbook for that, but if there was one, these guys could probably make it.
Well, we're going to be talking to the Minister of State, Noor Al-Kabi, in a moment. And we'll be chatting to you in a bit. Andrew, just very quickly, just before we go, from newsroom perspective, first floor, Midori House, watching all of this unfold as well. And maybe we've been having a conversation also a little bit about the story from inside, and very much a conflicted story as well. The people who have remained, the story of the expat, the migrant, those who have fled. Are we at a bit of a moment of reckoning now as well? I mean, we're in this suspended period of maybe a settled situation right now. We have to see what, of course, is over the horizon. But what's your impression?
Well, I think it's interesting. As you said, some people have definitely gone back home. Influencers have fled. Or those people may have disappeared. But what I think is more striking is the number of people who have said they're going to remain here. So in difficult times, they also find themselves bound to this place in interesting ways. They feel a commitment. They feel a loyalty to place. And I think that's the story we also want to investigate this week. It's a story of migration. What happens when you move to a place and actually your life unfolds there, not just over 1 or 2 years, but maybe generationally now? What's the commitment that you feel to a country as well? So we're going to speak to both sides of that, the challenges and the opportunities that people see by remaining committed to place, even in times of difficulty.
You are listening to a special edition of The Globalist with me, Tyler Burley, also Andrew Tuck. A little bit adrift of normal news time, but nevertheless, we're going to head to Bangkok right now. Gary's there with the news headlines.
Thank you, Tyler. Australia's social media ban for the under-16s has been unsuccessful, according to a new survey. Some 62% of parents said their children were still accessing sites with the same or new accounts, with an online safety regulator adding that Meta, TikTok and YouTube have not complied with December's new rules. Staying in Australia, 8 people will receive awards for bravery for their actions during the Bondi Junction stabbing 2 years ago. 6 people died in the attack after a man experiencing a psychotic episode entered a crowded Sydney shopping mall. Thailand has entered its 7 deadly days of road travel as large numbers of Thais head back to their hometowns over the Songkran national holiday. The road saw some 95 fatalities in 525 accidents over the first 3 days, with speeding and drink driving the main causes. Meanwhile, the Thai New Year celebrations are well underway on this first official day of the Songkran 3-day holiday. Locals and visitors alike should expect crazy high temperatures and crazy water fights across the country. While domestic travel is subdued due to rising fuel costs, the parties in Bangkok and beyond are expected to be as wild as ever.
And that was our Gary Boyle in Bangkok for us with the news headlines. You are listening to The Globalist here on Monocle Radio. I'm very happy to say that Noor Al-Kabi is joining us. She is the Minister for State at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. A little bit of a voice, you could say, as well, around the world of Monocle. We were here in the capital 2 weeks ago, but last time we saw you, we were in Barcelona at the Quality of Life conference. Noor, having a conversation about many of the topics now which have become very sharp, very pointed, very much have come to life. Because I recall you were talking about communication, engagement, etc. Maybe just bring us up to speed from the moment that we were sort of sitting in your Majlis having a conversation, where we are 2 weeks later. It's been an extraordinary weekend right now. But if you take the temperature, what is happening right now? What is your take?
It's wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to be speaking with you, especially that we've been having those conversation when it comes to, as you said, engagement. The world is so far we can call it maybe we're living in an interesting times. Unfortunately, unsettling. For the past more than 40 days, the UAE has been under attack. More than 3,000 missiles has been just targeted to the UAE. Now, where we are in a position of resilience, we're in a position of strength. As you can see, as where we are today, we're in the Zayed Museum, National Museum. This institution is not just an institution or a beautiful building behind an architecture, but it resembles an idea. And this idea is the idea that is being attacked. If we thought the attack is because of a geography situation, it's not. It's beyond that. It's Iran chose to attack us while the UAE has been never part of this war, and we continue saying so. But we defended, we'll continue defending. And I think one word that describes today is resilience and continuity. 2 words.
Can I ask you, when we look at the talks at the weekend in Islamabad, 21 hours of J.D. Vance on the ground in Islamabad, trying to get to some kind of peace structure. Now, that hasn't happened, and now we hear from today, Donald Trump says he will try and block the Straits of Hormuz to all traffic. The pace of negotiations and the unfolding narratives are so fast. What was your take when those talks finished? Did it surprise you, or as you talk about resilience, were you always thinking that it was very hard to bring Iran to the table at this time?
Well, for us, ceasefire is not the answer. It's just the beginning. I believe the UAE has been very clear that we need to have Iran accountable. We need to stop such hostilities. We must, look at the Strait of Hormuz as an international water, open and unconditional way. And I think we are here looking into the principles of such, a map or going forward with what we're trying to achieve as the UAE and the neighboring countries. But if I will go specifically in terms of our ask is accountability. Our ask is making sure that this stops. Our ask is the Strait of Hormuz is not hostage to any country. It's the global economy is hit because of the strait. When we look at the merchants, when we look at the gas, the fertility, the food, and even the environmental element of the strait itself and the Arabian Gulf is being hit right now. So I think it's very clear. We need this to stop. We want accountability. The strait shouldn't be conditioned to any nation. It should be open for everyone, as it's under the International Convention of Sea Law. And therefore, we are making sure that we're just focused in terms of what will protect the UAE and keep us going.
Just across the last 24 hours, Minister, we've seen the UK, we've seen France saying they're not going to join in this blockade. What is the UAE's position on this? It seems that we enter this week with America, of course, looking to, of course, build up some type of coalition. What is the position of the UAE?
The UAE's position is to defend its sovereignty, to defend its land, its territory. Yet the UAE position is also a position where we look into the future. How will the future look like if this will continue? Will I rely on the strait? Will there be other options? Can I work on alternatives? It shouldn't be the only answer. And I think this is what makes, an institution or a country matter, is how will I act after I'm being tested? I think we are being tested right now, and we're proving that there are elements, as I mentioned, when it comes to business continuity, when it comes to even if schools online, there is continuity. People are going by their lives, and life is beautiful and normal if you consider it or phrase it in a way that we are under war or attacks. Yet I think it's time for the UAE to reassess when it comes from roots and when it comes to the future of relationships in such a geopolitical world.
Can I ask you, there's always been a tradition in this region, maybe a split actually between people who wanted to be non-aligned in this region, be friends with everybody, and up until now there had been attempts to be good neighbours even with Iran. But after this, do you think that we're going to see the UAE, countries in the Gulf, more aligned with the US or looking to, again, new partners? We're seeing this trip that's just happened to China by your ministers. Or do you think there's going to be a push for more friends in the world rather than just being aligned with a Western alliance?
I believe the UAE has been always a country that looked into building relationships. And going back to our talk in Barcelona, is how we engage and how we make sure that, it is a nation that is open. It is a nation that wants to build strong institutions. It's a nation you have, people from different nationalities. It's a small world. So what's being attacked is is the world when it comes to the UAE, because of what we embody and because of the people that are chose the UAE to be home. So this is not a small thing. Now, going to the diplomatic future relationships. With the US, we have relationships when it comes to AI, when it comes to education, when it comes to culture, museums. Next door is going, we're having, the Guggenheim Abu Dhabi is being basically finalized. Okay. Now, the UAE is going to look at the relationship when it comes to what will help and support the UAE. Of course, it's going to be a two-way formula between the countries that we will continue working with. The Crown Prince arrived last night to China, and China is also a country that we have economic trade with them, technology, and as well education and research happening. So we will always be open to building such relationships. But it's going to be different because safety is going to come first. Being clear and being honest in terms of what the enemy holds and who is the enemy and what kind of ideology they hold. What we're suffering from right now is not naming the enemy, not naming such ideology that has been infesting in this region for the past, 70 plus years. Therefore, we need to go back and say, let's say this is the virus that we need to make sure that we not just contain, but guarantee that this will not spread. And we should always ask ourselves a question. Do we want our kids, the next generation, to relive the same, thread of history and rhetoric that has been repeating itself for the past 70 plus years in the region, in such complex region? And it's time to learn our lesson.
Lesson is a really interesting point, because I'm wondering, perhaps we're looking in the diplomatic community that sits here as well. I'm wondering how busy your office is receiving people, Minister, who might be looking for a playbook, because just before you came on, our correspondent was saying how amazing the communications have been. I think there's been this surprise about how the defenses have worked, how they've been so resilient. Do you think the world is going to be flooding in to say, what did you do right here?
Well,
and not to be pompous about it, of course. Right?
I have to tell you that the UAE has been building on its capabilities when it comes to communication. And let's go back to COVID. When COVID hit, there was this kinds of transparent communication happening with experts from the medical field, from research, and of course the institutions, the hospitals, and every civil society institution or community. Yet what we can see right now happening is bringing back experts that are experts when it comes to the situation we are in right now. The war, the defense system, how is it ready? People were asking. We never thought that we would have such, a capability to handle such missiles. Another thing we need to remember as well, leadership has been up front in shopping malls and cafes, compassionate with the people, communicating constantly. And I think it always should come from the top. I have many people and friends who are not necessarily from the UAE, and it matters to them to see the president speak that day when he visited the hospital. So we never took any way of trying to communicate to the people for granted. We made sure that there is that multiple level and layered level of communication to everyone in a consistent way. Of course, this comes with many meetings, many discussions, how we will communicate that, when are we communicating that, when will you hear the alarm, certain times, when it will go on and off. If it's nighttime, people are sleeping, it will go on, but without the sound. So we're beyond just the communication. We're also, looking into how people will feel about the situation and how they're feeling about the situation. Because when this ends, and I hope it ends soon, we will have a new reality of taking care of our community, our families, and ourselves.
Just tell me about that new reality. When we look to the future, you've been doing extraordinary things in the region because you've been building a nation, but you've been building a nation brand, and we've known the principles that stands on. You've talked fascinatingly this morning about perhaps the blinkers are off a little bit. We're not going to put up with being provoked in this way, and that we recognise that actually there's a quality of life or a way of life here that's under attack as well as a nation. When you look to the future for diplomacy, but for yourself as an Emirati, what do you think? What do you think will come out of this? What do you want in a year's time, if this has passed, when people come here to realise has changed and not changed?
Well, I mean, of course, I'm an Emirati. I lived my whole life here in Abu Dhabi. I saw it transform. I remember certain streets in the 80s, and today I see them the same, but I see difference when it comes to the new buildings. Not only that, the people that flocked and came in and chose the UAE home. For us, it's not easy to hurt or scratch the credibility or the brand the UAE built, because it's people to people. I think what matters the most out of this is the solidarity we saw that missiles weren't able to hit, and this for us is everything, because you'll have people telling you this is transactional, this is just temporary. People come in for a couple of years, and then go back home. But what we've seen people choosing to be here and staying here. We're choosing people. Yes, some people left and they came back, and it's okay. It's more about how they believe in the system, and I think that faith for us is everything. I think that faith is what the UAE holds, and I hope that after that we will make sure that, and as the president said, everyone in the UAE is an Emirati. If you're in the UAE, you are an Emirati, and to do that in a polarized world, in a world where you see countries are fighting through extreme oppositions of elections, and is something we should really hold on and protect, and never lose sight.
Nur Al-Kabi, Minister of State for the UAE Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's always it's a delight seeing you, and great to start the week with you as well.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're listening to The Globalist. We're live here in Abu Dhabi. We're in the UAE across the week. We're going away for a very short break. When we come back, we'll be talking business sentiment.
Craft is a matter of perspective, a unique outlook, and obsessive attention to detail. With UBS's Chief Investment Office Houseview, we're focused on identifying the latest investment opportunities and market risks to help you achieve your financial goals, so you get the big picture broken down into thought-provoking insights. Delivered daily and curated by over 200 globally connected, locally active analysts. UBS. Banking is our craft.
And you're back with The Globalist with me, Tyler Brulé, also Andrew Tuck as well. Andrew, it's always amazing talking to Minister Nur Al-Kabi, because aside from, of course, just an amazing sort of poise and delivery and clarity as well, but I think always coming back to this notion of, as we said, engagement, bringing people along, and this idea of sort of, brand Emirates, what has been built here. But then I think this idea, I mean, you were saying on the way in from the airport yesterday, it is quite amazing, the slogans, the way that the PR machine in this country has also been mobilizing as well. You've probably collected about 10 plus different slogans from the UAE.
Yeah, it feels that every property company has found a space on their billboards to take down some of the signs just selling apartments, to put up rallying calls that they stand with the UAE, that they will come out more resilient, that they're wholeheartedly with the government here. And lots of the motorway passes are lit decked in the colours of the UAE flag. With Noura, I think it's also fascinating, however you take it, is that a nation built on migration, and this is a nation built on migration, people from all over the world. And she's right, some people have gone and some people have been more committed and have stayed throughout. But actually, it has proved resilient. And what we've talked about, Tyler, as well, around the world is, what is your story if you're a migrant and you come to a country? What was the point that it clicks in that actually you are loyal to that place, even though that you weren't born there? And maybe you don't carry the passport. But when does that click in? And I think that maybe our next guest will even be able to talk to us a little bit about that notion of coming to the region and what it means to make a commitment here.
Indeed, I'm very happy to welcome to the show Bhaskar Dasgupta. He's the Secretary of the Middle East Investment Management Association, also former executive of the ADGM. And anyone who's been to Abu Dhabi will know that these are the glimmering towers, the mall beneath the Galleria. It's the Abu Dhabi Global Market. Good morning. Very nice to see you. Let's just start on. Andrew was touching on resilience. Do we have a gauge already in terms of how the markets are responding? What the mood is like at the start of a new week here?
So when we're talking about resilience, I think the one thing that I basically say is that this particular country has been through quite a lot of transformations. If you think about it, just about a few decades back, the life expectancy was about 22 years. Now it is one of the richest countries. But again, Sheikh Zayed absolutely transformed the country again when he knew that the black stuff is going to run out or not being used. So the country is getting diversified. It has got a huge capacity for transforming itself. Now it's going through another transformation. And actually what I would say is the Middle East constantly had conflicts all throughout its recorded history. The last 3 decades was actually an aberration. Now we are what I would call a status quo pace. And if you look around what people are saying, what people are doing, every morning I'm out on my bike ride. We are having excellent food. We are absolutely concerned about the economic impact, but the government reacted very, very quickly, slashing the license fees, helping people to do more business, making sure that the flights keep on running. It's a good place to be.
Now, Bhaskar, anybody who looks up your name, I was impressed with the number of boards that you managed to sit on, the number of companies that you're involved in. One of the things that you're involved in crypto companies, you've advised on the worlds of AI, you're on the technology side. Now, on this side, is there resilience and commitment there? Because this, I know that you've also talked about this as a place for startups. You've been encouraging that. You've worked in the UK, you've worked around the world, but you saw in Abu Dhabi, I saw from many of the interviews you've done in the past, as a strength here in the startup culture. Is that what's going to be important going forward? Because obviously the worlds of tourism and the airlines will take a hit in the medium term. But is that where you still see the commitment to investment and growth and ambition?
See, at the end of the day, startups don't appear out of a vacuum. This, and I think you mentioned this before, as a nation of migrants, look at pretty much any country around the world. Which country actively encourages good people or immigrants to come? Hardly any. So when you come over here, you are not necessarily and always coming for a job. A substantial number of migrants come here because they want to set up their own business. And it's not exactly just a startup, as in the traditional way, that is a tech startup. You can come here and set up a laundry, and you can do very well. And that's the whole point that I'm trying to say, is that the import of this extraordinary level of talent and the progressive nature of the government, who says, we'll look after you. And apologies if you fell short.
Bhaskar, I'm curious, what do you think will shift when we talk about startup culture? Maybe there is room for more laundries as well. I always like a good laundromat. But in terms of, will there be also a reshuffling? What has come out of this conflict? We know there's already a very powerful defense and tech sector in this country. What type of realignment do you think we'll see?
So I think some of the frothier bits is going to go away. When I say frothier bits, it might be, for example, the shopping pieces, e-commerce. Yeah, it's going to take a hit. These are retail pieces, and people are not flying as much, people are not shopping as much, traffic is not as much, car sales are going to be down. But guess what? This particular place is multi-layered. They are going to double down on the infrastructure spend. A huge amount of infrastructure has to be spent because of climate change, to repair, to increase, and to protect. So they have to build in multiple redundancies. So the infrastructure sector is going to boom. AI is again going to boom much more. They're going to invest far more in healthcare. Defense and aerospace we just talked about. So these are sectors where the particular, assets and the key parts of Abu Dhabi and UAE come into play. Lots of money, lots of investments, ability to take risk, a resilient population which has now gone through the fire of war, and it can take risks. It can look forward to things. People don't quite appreciate what happens. If you look at in Europe or wherever big wars have happened, the population that survives, they are very resilient.
You're talking about, Tyler touched on this, what happens in the future. You've talked about some of this resilience, but if you were called in to see the government, and actually Noor Al-Kabi said something fascinating. She said, look, that in a way the blinkers are off now. Going forward, we're not going to mess around. We know who's against us. We know who the opposition are. We're going to be a bit more robust about standing up for the things we believe in. For the region, what do you think the business version of that will be? What would you think the 2 or 3 things, if you were speaking to leadership, you'd say to them, okay, you've done a good job, but these are the 2 or 3 things I think you need to have top of agenda as we pull out of this?
So I've already started to do that. So you mentioned I'm on the associations of several kinds. Second week, we produced a paper. These are things that you can do in 2 ways. One is improve the regulatory perspectives. Can you fix this law? Can you make it easier? Can you make it clearer? That's the first thing. And the second thing is, how can you increase usage? Because just by changing laws doesn't mean usage will increase. So for example, as the chair of the Middle East Stablecoin Association, we went and said, this is how you can attract more crypto boys, more stablecoin people. But at the same time, we are going and speaking to Abu Dhabi Inc., to Dubai Inc. to say, why don't we start taking license fees in stablecoins? Just to give you a small example. And the government is extremely receptive. I have yet to find one regulator who has said, no, we don't want to talk.
Because is it correct, this is one of the biggest centers in the world for cryptocurrency regulation already?
That's correct. That is correct. I mean, I came here in 2018, and that's where I started to work for ADGM and was responsible a bit to develop the digital assets workstream over here. And it is growing like topsy.
Bhaskar Dasgupta, very, very nice to chat to you this morning. Thanks for coming on. You're listening to The Globalist with me, Tyler Berlea, also Andrew Tuck. Andrew, just bring you back into the frame very briefly before we go to Paris to get a sample of what's happening, of course, in newspapers elsewhere in the world. I thought you were going to sort of jump in right there and just sort of be like our crypto correspondent for us, but
I like that Bhaskar is looking after the laundry guy and the crypto boy. He's got them both on his agenda. But again, when speaking to Bhaskar, when you look at the number of companies he's involved with and came from India, worked in the UK in government in many ministries, and then has come here and has made all of these successful industries. You see why people have this commitment to place, and also how that you can already as a business leader have access to the top tier, essentially, of management of a nation to influence in real time during what is a war. You can influence the outcomes of regulation and how you maneuver to be nimble to pull ahead.
Time for the newspapers, not news headlines, but there'll be some headlines there as well. Our Fernando Augusto Pacheco is in Studio 5, I believe it's Studio 5, in Paris this morning. Bon dia, good morning, bonjour. How are you, Faye?
Bonjour, Tyler. Bonjour, Andrew. Great to speak to you guys as well. So I have some interesting stories for you from Peru to start.
Take us to Lima.
Let's talk. Let's take us to Lima. So basically, of course, everybody's talking about the Hungarian elections, which is incredible news. But I'm fascinated by the Peruvian elections. So basically, in the last decade, Peru had 9 presidents. One of them just lasted for 5 days, and quite a few of them have been arrested. Some of them had to resign. So, everybody's looking at the country. So basically, let's look at the 2 candidates that are going to the runoff. We don't have the final results yet because it's been quite a chaotic day yesterday. So a lot of people couldn't vote, and a small percentage, but still, but they're still voting today. But they're counting the vote. Keiko Fujimori, the daughter of the disgraced former president Alberto Fujimori, she is leading the polls. But let's not forget that she's been the runner-up in the last 3 Peruvian elections. So although she has kind of a loyal fan base, a lot of people dislike her as well. And the other candidate will probably be like Rafael Lopez Aliaga. He's very much a pro-business, almost like a Trump-like character. And the interesting story here, both candidates are from the right. And the main theme of the election was security, was crime. And they will be very close allies of the U.S. So the left didn't do very well at all in the Peruvian elections as well.
Faye, we are jumping across to. I can't imagine that we're going to stay in South America and not go to Brazil.
Of course, let's go to O Globo. And I chose a business and fashion story. I'm quite excited about this, Tyler. So tomorrow, Rio Fashion Week returns after more of a decade of absence, actually. So in Brazil, at a point, late 90s, early 90s, we used to have 2 quite strong fashion weeks. São Paulo, of course, which was the main one where the business, everybody wanted to be there. But Rio Fashion Week was quite a nice one. They were kind of more dedicated to swimwear. It was a little bit more lighthearted. But then, I think because of kind of business pressures, they had to cancel the event. But, the mayor of Rio and I think a lot of kind of business leaders in the city, they are making quite a big comeback with big Brazilian brands. Some of them, I'm sure like Osclaim by Oscar Metzavat doing a very big, catwalk, or newer brands like Missy from Iron Martin, which we featured in the style issue of Monocle. And I cannot wait to see this because the catwalk show is going to be at the Sambadrome, the beautiful kind of building that Oscar Niemeyer built decades ago as well. So there's something happening in the Brazilian fashion industry now. Our luxury market is booming now, and it's not just foreign brands going to Brazil, but local brands as well.
I mean, that's going to be a whole broad topic for us to be discussing over the coming issues. This bounce back, the retail bounce back that's happening in Brazil. Fernando, just before we go, I believe there's a little bit of excitement about a fellow, compatriot, country folk from Canada, Madame Celine Dion. I think a few tickets have been selling because I think we might have heard there's some concerts coming up in Paris.
I'm a little bit upset, Tyler, because I applied for the Celine Dion tickets. I did not manage. So if you have any Canadian context, please let me know. But there was a story at Le Monde today. Battle Royale for Celine Dion tickets. I mean, it's impressive. I mean, I think at some point there were over 1 million people in the queue if you wanted to get tickets. And listen, there will be 16 dates here in Paris at La Défense Arena between September and October. But everybody's talking about it. I arrived in Paris last afternoon, yesterday, and just walking around, there are posters of Celine everywhere. I feel the city kind of is feeling. I went to FNAC as well. There were like a whole kind of segment only with Celine Dion kind of vinyls and CDs. But you know what? I think I'll manage to get the tickets in the end. But, if you are trying, if you go to the website, it's quite a hard one. But it's going to bring quite a lot of, economic benefits to the city. Apparently, it's estimated they will bring between 300 and 500 million euros. That's quite a lot.
That is quite a significant hit. Our Fernando Augusto Pacheco in our bureau in Paris, joining us from Studio 5. You're listening to The Globalist here on Monocle Radio. Just coming up to 10:40 here in Abu Dhabi. That's 7:40 if you're listening back in London or listening anywhere else in the world as well. Andrew, we're going to continue with newspapers though as well, because of course we've been sort of following the National for a while. This is the newspaper of record, maybe not just for Abu Dhabi, but also for the UAE. We've even stolen some staff from that newspaper over the years as well. But we're very happy that the editor-in-chief is joining us today.
Well, Mina Al-Arabi, you're very welcome to join us here at the National Museum. Now, I wanted to ask you, we saw you in Abu Dhabi at the end of last year where the conversation was very different, the role you were playing as a newspaper editor now. Any newspaper editor in a country during a moment of war takes on additional responsibilities and is reflective of the needs of the country as well as the needs of the reader. How has that been, learning in real time how to do that? Because that's from day one, you have to think about, okay, how do we tell a true and accurate story, but one that isn't inflammatory, that is gossiping about in a way about the war?
It's been quite the learning curve, not just for me, but for my team. First of all, Abu Dhabi, the UAE, is a place that people move to expecting to be reporting about the region, but often not being in the heart of conflict. And so my initial thought, of course, was for our team. We have 125 people from all walks of life, from different parts of the world, and making sure that they saw that role. And it was incredible how it organically came in. I actually didn't need to go and give a pep talk to the newsroom and say, you have this really important role to be telling a story, not only for our audiences here in the UAE, but globally, of what it's like to be here. But also, as you said, to get a rallying spirit of saying we can do this, and that there is a sense of resilience and also a sense of a hurt of being attacked, despite, of course, the UAE had warned against this war, like the rest of the Gulf countries. UAE had put in a lot of diplomatic efforts in advance. One of the chief diplomats, Seba, had been to Tehran and back just days before the war. So there was a real sense that, the UAE had made its position clear, no bases were going to be used, would likely not be under attack. And of course, very soon after, 10:30 in the morning when the initial strikes happened in Tehran, 10:30 a.m. Abu Dhabi time, very soon after we saw that there was incoming missiles and drones, and people were suddenly realizing, okay, now this is war and what it would be like. And so, yes, there was that role of making sure that the team are there and that everybody rallied, which they did. The second is that role for the country where you have to be careful not to cause panic and that not things that are anecdotal suddenly become telling the story of the entire country. And I think we've seen that in different contexts, especially when it comes to the UAE. It's almost like a caricature. If suddenly somebody has a personal reaction, and I think it's really true when it comes to instances like this. Everybody has their own tolerance level. Everybody has their own reaction, their own personal reaction. That should not reflect an entire society or an entire moment. And so getting that balance right, accurate reporting, while at the same time not being emotive and being as clear as possible. So it was, I think in the first few days, it really started to come together and it became almost second nature. And I have to say, I'm really proud of our team also all coming together for it.
Nevertheless, of course, it demanded a big shift for the newsroom as well. And I'm wondering, we can't say that we're moving out of this right now. We're still in the thick of it in many ways. What has changed, though, in terms of the types of reporting, the types of graphic output that you have to do, the types of photos you're commissioning? What are the learnings already, you would say?
Well, I think that idea of having one big news story, of course, we've had moments like this. COVID, of course, there was one big story. We had a live blog in the initial days and weeks. Same with the Gaza war, likewise we had. But it didn't feel like a whole newsroom coming together. And you're right, it was the entire newsroom coming together. So one is this consistent update. And suddenly you had a core story that everybody was feeding in. Concerts being postponed, sports events changing, finding ways to deal with education. So suddenly the entire newsroom was telling one story, but different angles of the story. And so I think we've also had learnings, you're right, about graphics, the importance of graphics. People want to be informed with data sets that they can then pass on. And I think that's really important, of making sure that whatever we're doing is very immediate to the audience, but also this is a story the entire world is telling. I mean, we've had journalists from Finland through to South Korea, of course, from the UK and the US, all coming here. And suddenly the National was becoming a resource for them too. The amount of people who reached out to us and said, what would might be the best way that we can tell this story. So I think one of the learnings also is that the National is a resource. We've done interviews with 55 different outlets from around the world to tell them the story of what's happening here. And I think we didn't see ourselves in the same way as an actual resource for the world, telling the story not only of the UAE, but the wider Middle East. I mean, our tagline is the Middle East explained, and so we'll continue doing that.
One trickier question, if you don't mind me asking. Around the world, there's been lots of coverage of what's happened to people who have been a bit outspoken on social media and the clamping down of that. What's your take on that? And when you speak to foreign journalists, how do you explain the way that has been run, controlled?
Sure. So look, I think there are a number of things. So first, it was very clear that there were concerns about people taking video on social media. Again, this is one of the first few wars where everybody is connected 24 hours a day on social and feel that it is their duty to film on their phone and broadcast whatever they see. And so suddenly you had in the first few days, you were seeing not only drones or missiles, but also where the interceptors coming from. So it genuinely was a national security concern. Because if suddenly you are telegraphing to the enemy immediately where interceptors are coming from, where particular areas had damage, you're giving live 24-hour information back to Iran that was striking the UAE. So I think that message didn't come across clear enough. And it wasn't so much about journalists, because actually most of us are trained in what is and cannot be put out. It was much more, a 17-year-old kid who has an Instagram account putting something out and getting in a lot of trouble. Because I think that the speed of events and the ability of everybody to be a publisher, I always say not everyone's a journalist, but everyone can be a publisher because they have their own social media accounts. How do you get the message out that we're incredibly serious? So I would think that they were very strict, but from Ukraine, which has very strict rules also, through to Israel, through to other parts of the Arab world, when it comes to wartime, the rules change, and you really felt that. But I think also it was the need to be immediate, because not everybody was getting the message that we really need you to stop with this kind of telegraphing exactly what's happening in very sensitive moments that, again, for the ordinary person does not seem sensitive.
Mina from the National, always great to chat. Also to your colleagues as well. Thank you very much for being with us. You're listening to The Globalist with me, Tyler Burley, Andrew Tuck. It's just gone 10:47 here in Abu Dhabi. We're back right after this.
IQ, EQ, and AI. 3 components key to the craft of innovation at UBS. Because to stay ahead in a rapidly evolving age, you need a partner with decades of experience, endless passion for the work, and a finger on the pulse of leading technologies, bridging human expertise with artificial intelligence, all to elevate you. UBS, banking is our craft.
You are back with The Globalist here in Abu Dhabi. We are broadcasting from the Zayed National Museum. It is just such an amazing place to be. Rather remarkable, Andrew, that we're sort of sitting here. That we also made a call to come and do this show, to come out to the UAE only mere days ago.
Only midday goes. I don't think we could have a more central location in Abu Dhabi to be broadcasting from. And we've been in here since the museum opened, so we're beginning to get a nice audience around us as well as people come into the space.
Indeed, museum is open with this incredible backdrop, and I'm very happy to say that His Excellency Mohammed Khalifa Al Mubarak, who oversees many things, but is the chairman of the Department for Culture and Tourism. But we have this amazing this vessel behind us, and good morning. Super to see you here. You've actually you skippered this vessel as well, I believe.
Yes, sir, I have. I've been one of the lucky ones.
Maybe I'm keen to start. And maybe just talk about the role of culture, the role of these institutions that they've played over this last period. Because, I've been here, this is like now my second trip since we've been in this conflict. Everything's been open, which is a little bit different than maybe the narrative we hear elsewhere in the world.
I mean, first of all, thank you for being here. And really seeing is believing. You being here, and I know we visited each other a couple of weeks ago, I think you've seen how the psyche around the city has continuously evolved during this process. But it all comes down to sort of your earlier discussion when it comes to culture. For us, culture is the light in the end of the tunnel. And I think it's for all of us. That's what connects us all as human beings. We believe in the power of music, the power of history, the power of art, the power of performances. We believe in their power and how they bring people together, and more importantly, make people more accepting, more tolerant, more understanding. That belief is in our DNA, and it's something that we invested in and we continue to invest in. No matter what hurdle comes upon us, whether it is an economic crisis, whether it is COVID, whether it's a situation we're in right now, we have a very, very clear path, and nothing's going to stop us to get to that path. And what's in the heart of that path is our youth. Everything you see around you, everything we're doing is for the next generation. And we believe culture is the building blocks of a generation that is more outgoing, more understanding, and hopefully a culture and a people that sees things quite different than we see it.
I was last here, actually. I was just prior to this museum opening, when the week that the Natural History Museum opened. I saw you doing the rounds there, checking everything from spots of paint to making sure that the coffee cups were right. You were looking after every detail, and I was struck then by I think we get the narrative around the world that many of these cultural institutions have been built to attract tourists, they're for outsiders. But what struck me as I went around the museum on that opening day, the number of local kids going around. This is a cultural educational play for people who live here, for Emiratis, whether they're transplants here or Emirati passport holders. How important do you think these museums are going to be? Because when we were talking to Noor Al-Kabi this morning, she's made clear that what's going on here in this war is, of course, a battle of in the region. It's over space, it's over the Straits of Hormuz, but it's about culture as well and about what you represent. How important do you think these museums will be for telling that story, for putting a flag in the sand and saying, this is what we stand for?
I mean, they're monumental, to be honest with you. We're standing behind a 4,500-year-old vessel. This vessel sailed these seas before me, before you, before all of us. It continued to sail and make trade routes and make partners throughout history, whether through ancient Mesopotamia all the way to the ancient Asians. This is who we are, and it's not going to change. And we talk about situations like this, and we talk about resilience. It's a word that's usually used very much during this period. For us, a museum like this, our national museum, where people can come and understand the true meaning of resilience. To be honest with you, we've been through this rodeo before. Our forefathers were here when oil wasn't discovered, when a meal was hard to get by, when you were battling left and right by different tribes coming from all over the place to take your land for water. This is not 1,000 years ago, this is hundreds of years ago only. So we still feel that here. So to see it and to feel it and to understand it in this museum gives you a sort of strength of understanding that we've been through this, our people have been through this, and we're going to go through this. And every time we've gone through it together, we've been more resilient and we've had a much more prosperous future. So I'm extremely optimistic. And, during this period, I was speaking to your colleague, what was beautiful to see is how people react and then how people open themselves to this reaction. We've all come closer together. The beauty about the United Arab Emirates and Abu Dhabi is when we say 200 nationalities are local, we really mean it. And we've seen it firsthand. I've loved going to every small corner of the city, interacting with people literally from all over the world, seeing how much they trust in the situation like I trust in the situation. So we're unified on how we trust our leadership to take care of us. Compounded by that, we're both calling this place home. We're both calling this place home. And this is what we're all about. Everything we do here, we never talk about the biggest buildings and the largest this and the largest that. We really talk about how do we continuously enhance the quality of life for the residents of the people living here. Regardless if you're a national, if you're coming from Southeast Asia, coming from Europe, coming from Africa. At the end of the day, if you're here, you're one of us and we're going to take care of each other.
One of the fascinating things is, of course, these institutions, these incredible monuments, they've been open. But if we also look across, the cranes haven't stopped swinging. The bright lights are on at night, as you said. You're going for it, and construction is not stopping. So, looking ahead, if you can just maybe just gaze into the future. I think you're rather good at that. Tell us where things are heading. I think there's a rather small institution called the Guggenheim, not far from here, which is coming up. What do the months ahead look like? Of course, we don't know, of course, what's going to be happening, elsewhere with the situation in the region. But nevertheless, as you said, progress doesn't halt.
Absolutely. I think you've probably heard, since you've been here, from many, many other people, the tagline, business as usual. It really has been business as usual. It's amazing. I was talking to a friend of mine just yesterday, and we were talking about the situation, and we both paused for a second and said, you know what's amazing is that since the first ballistic missile or the first drone was fired from Iran to the UAE, we haven't stopped. We haven't had a day off. So on both fronts. So on one front, the most courageous men and women are protecting our skies and protecting our way of life. But at the other side of the equation, the practitioners, the cultural practitioners, the businessmen, the businesswomen, the small businesses, all of them have continuously functioned. And what has happened also is we have looked at this and says, how do we make sure that our economy is sustained? So the amount of help and the amount of packages and stimulus focus, both from the private sector and the public sector, and helping these businesses flourish has been great. But as far as we're concerned, like I said, we have a very clear vision. We know what we aspire to. And all of these cultural institutions, these entertainment institutions, these educational institutions, to us, they are not for the next 5 years, they're for the next 100 years. And hence, we're doing this for, like I said, the next and the next generation.
Can I ask you, you're describing a situation which many people around the world will be surprised to hear. Just tell me, when you open your laptop in the morning, or when you look at your phone and you read the headlines in newspapers around the world, there is some great reporting going on, without a doubt, but there is certainly a sense in some quarters of people perhaps wondering if you're going to fail here, if this is the moment of reckoning when all the influencers will disappear and that you're built on some kind of shaky foundation. Do you get cross when you read the morning papers, or do you think, God, this is so frustrating? What's your mood by the time you leave the house?
I love music, all kinds of music. So and I have been humbled at all my life that I got the opportunity to listen to all kinds of music. So when I see, whether it's the Daily Mail or the Telegraph with "It's over, the dream is over," I tend to remember LL Cool J's beautiful song where he says, "Don't call it a comeback. I've been here for years." He has been here for years. We've gone through it through COVID. We've gone through it through 2 economic down cycles, and every time it was the same reporting. It's the dream's over. This is not what it seemed to be, and every time we've redefined ourselves, re-evolved, and we've rethought how we want to prioritize our focuses.
Just before we go, in 30 seconds or less, the ramp up, is it sort of kind of very, very gentle, like maybe if you're just sort of starting out on a skateboard? Or is it a bit more steep? How do you bounce back?
I mean, first of all, we look at the fundamentals, the sectors that we're continuously investing on, whether it is oil and gas, whether it's AI, whether it is pharmaceuticals, and the list goes on. Those fundamentals haven't changed, and you've probably seen over the last couple of weeks doubling down on some of these key sector investments. So on that front, we're moving full steam ahead. On the cultural front specifically, again, like you said, cranes are still moving. The Guggenheim is still under construction. The collection continuously grows. We just had an acquisition committee just 4 or 5 days ago. Brought in some beautiful new art from around the world to enhance our collection. And, we're still gung-ho that we believe that these culture institutions are places that are going to change the entire social fabric of the city. So we believe in it.
Your Excellency, thank you very much. We have to leave it there. Great seeing you. That's all for this edition of The Globalist. Andrew, I hope you enjoyed your little twirl. We want to just say a huge thanks, of course, to also our colleagues here as well. We're going to be back, though, at midday with the briefing. That is all from Abu Dhabi. Have a good day. Bye-bye.